everybody, Steve Halkin Napier. Welcome to Building a Career That Matters. With any luck at all, today we are going to finish our discussion about dealing with long-term disruption. Specifically, how can you move your business into more of a virtual sort of a delivery system? I wanted to start by going back to a little piece of homework I gave you guys couple of calls ago. We talked a lot about all the different things you could be doing to move your business into more of a virtual delivery kind of a scheme. And I said, I want you guys to think about what is it that you really think you're going to do? Or do you want to start a YouTube channel? And if you do, is it for marketing purposes, or are you trying to earn money off of it? Do you want to do an online membership organization and do all the stuff that's related with that and sell memberships at different tier levels? Do you want to just have some sort of coursework that you want to put up on one platform or another and be in the business of selling classes? What is it that you really want to be doing in terms of all this? Because as I said last time around, bottom line is you can't do it all. So it's simply too much to try to do. So anyone have any thoughts? Anything you want to share about what your thoughts are around leveraging technology? And they're all quiet.
Well, it can certainly be a challenge. I remember when I first started doing my podcasts, I ended up nesting two of my podcasts underneath another podcast. Couldn't find them. Went back and forth with technical support. Finally found them. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big learning curve to that. Now, for those of you who are thinking about podcasting, if you really think about what podcast really is you have a radio show. So, I think the big difference is you're not visually on the recording, but the audio part is all there. If you are going to do podcasts, then certainly having those podcasts transcribed so that you could use that as an added benefit for your podcast subscribers, or you could use it as a foundation for articles or chapters in a book or a course, whatever.
Have a good video, and there's not a lot of visuals that affect the quality of someone understanding what you're saying, to strip the audio out and just make that a separate podcast. And we've had some clients who have said they will listen to some of the videos we make because there's not always something to see. So that's what we're playing with. So David, love to hear like what you're using to create those podcasts and how you're distributing those.
I use Anchor FM. I find it pretty simple to use. It's got an editing feature, which allowed me to salvage one of my podcasts, and it's pretty simple to use.
Cool. And you said it was called Anchor, like a boat?
FM. Yep. Like Anchor and like the radio FM.
Sweet. Thank you.
So, David, I had a question for you about the podcasting.
Yes.
Was that a monthly subscription service? Was that an annual kind of a thing? Free. And so you would you would upload whatever your podcasts were, or were they also the recording capability? Were they?
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah.
So you broadcast, you would log into their channel, broadcast, they're capturing it. And then how are they making money? Are they slapping ads around what you're doing, or?
Yeah, it's it all depends on the listenership.
Okay.
If you have so many listeners, then you qualify for so much. And
okay, yeah. And were you happy with it overall?
Yeah, no, it was my first attempt at podcasting, and I ran into a few hiccups, but generally, I'm pretty pleased with Anchor FM and their response rates and their technology.
And are you able then to download the recordings for your own uses, or do they hold claim to them?
No, when you record, you can either record to your hard drive or to the cloud.
Oh, all right. Well, this is sweet. So that's great. They're giving you a wonderful thing. I'd love to know how they're really monetizing it all. But
so would I, kind of.
Yeah. I'm always wondering about that. And then let's see, Ivan, you were talking about you guys have had some things transcribed.
No, not yet. We're wanting to know what people are using for
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Well, Lynn and I have had a lot of experience having things transcribed. And I can tell you that we had the greatest success going to a service like Odesk. When we did it, Odesk was all the rage. And so are you guys familiar with Odesk? It's one of
Yes.
these freelance places where you can find somebody who can do just about anything. And so we were able to find, we had to go through a few. Some of the transcriptions were not what I was looking for, but we ultimately found one that was very, very good and very economical. What we learned from talking to some of these transcription possibilities was that some of them are going to do a literal transcription. So if you or ah, they're going to type in and ah. And we didn't want that. We wanted someone who could transcribe it, but kind of do a bit of cleanup as they go along. You know, if anything, I really didn't want someone who was going to do a direct transcription as much as I wanted someone who would become scribe. So you guys remember college days that there was someone in all the lecture classes whose whole job was to describe the whole thing. They would take detailed notes on whatever the lecture was all about, and then they would sell all the other students in the class the notes. Anybody remember scribing, or were you any of you serve as a scribe? Yeah, no.
I used to carry in a tape recorder.
Yeah, that's what we did too. I can't imagine the number of batteries I would burn through trying to do all that. But point is like you really don't want a direct transcription because it's not all that readable. What you want is someone who will actually just be a good scribe, take good notes that are readable versus just like an outline of it, so that your clients can go, all right, so if I can't listen to the whole thing, at least offline I can read it. Some people are more skimmers than they are readers, and so they could just kind of like skim over the whole thing, and in half the time that participation would have required, they can get the gist of whatever was going on. So
Otter has both levels. So the basic will just transcribe in real time,
yeah.
but you pay a small monthly and you can add things like editing and exporting and
Mhm.
organizing in folders. So you can at least see how bad they are.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really vitally important because, like, can you guys imagine having someone transcribe this call? This call is so random, and I would like to think that it's got plenty of wonderful gems that are worth capturing.
But there's a lot you wouldn't want to read. So if you
Right.
can skim it and get what you need, then you don't need to pay for people that will do it.
Right. And of
But
course,
if that's a hassle, then you have to rethink it.
yeah. And early on, we thought, oh, well, they can give us the raw transcription. We'll go through it. We'll clean it up. Well,
Too much.
yeah, it's just too much. And you got other things to be doing than all that. So I really love the idea about transcription. I know that both Zoom and GoToMeeting offer auto transcription. But again, the question is always going to be, is it really the transcription you want, or is it some sort of a readable, shareable document that you can provide to your listeners as added value or as a substitute for actually being on your live call? So just go into that with clarity so you know what you're asking for. Yep. Questions, comments about transcriptions?
Well, I was just wondering, who was that that was just talking to you? Do you use Fiverr?
That was Tom.
Oh, hi, Tom.
It's called Otter.
Oh,
And
Otter.
I do use it. And they have a free service, which is what T was saying would have, it doesn't edit it at all, including the ums. And then they
Okay.
have a pro bundle that would include customized editing. You can even tell them kinds of things you're looking for. And
And how much would that premium?
I think it was like $8 a month. Let me look it up.
Really? That'd be sweet.
Tom, while you're looking it up, I was referred to Fiverr, Fiverr.
Yeah, so what that is that's just consultants. So if you want video editing, they put it out on their network and you get responses from Fiverr people. I've used it for a lot of things.
Oh, so there's something
And
like
it's your results may vary
Yeah.
because You could get somebody who has free time, who's a really good video editor who wants to make a few bucks, or you could get somebody who thinks she knows how to video edit.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I'll share
And-
with you guys that there's a lot of videos up on YouTube of people's experiences with Fiverr. And so one of them was the guy just wanted to have, like when you're watching a nice YouTube channel, they might have a good 30-second little intro graphic kind of treatment with some animation and, cool little signature sort of opening sort of thing. So they said they were going to hire, I think they hired 5 different Fivers, gave them all the exact same budget and the exact same parameters, and they showed the results they actually got. And as Tom was just alluding to, it's a bit of a crapshoot. So unless you can actually see some of the people's portfolio to get an idea, you're going to get a lot of different levels of quality.
And which is good if you really just need someone to go through some drudgery
Yep.
and you pay a few bucks and they do it.
Yep.
But when you have video editing, you care about the quality and you
Absolutely.
care about, and they may be great, but they
Yep.
may be, yeah.
Yeah, so like anything else, and the same thing was true on Odesk. I don't know, maybe Odesk still exists. I really don't know, but I'm sure there's many services akin to Odesk, and these are the people that are kind of like for hire admin and secretarial sorts of services, those sorts of things. I'm sure it's other things too, programming or whatever else you need.
Anything has that, like virtual assistants, it can take more time to tell them what you need than to do it,
Yeah.
or they could be great.
Right.
you know?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So just be very, I think you got to go into it with great clarity about what you're expecting in terms of output. And rather than saying, we need a transcriptionist. I do not need a transcriptionist. I need a document.
Yes.
So, right. Yeah. Edie, go ahead, dear.
I was just going to say Odesk and Guru.com, all of those have been bought up by Upwork. So if
Yeah.
you're looking for some, Upwork is the new,
That's the new label for it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a, great thing. We've had some wonderful success with it. And then we've had, some stuff that you go like, what am I supposed to do with all this? Okay. Let's see. Anything else? So podcasts. Yeah. All right. So David, going back to podcasting for just a second, was your thought that the podcast was going to be a revenue generating what do I say, approach in and of itself, or were you just doing this to add value for your client relationships, et cetera? Where did it fit into the David Harrell story?
A little bit of both. I decided that hiring was an area of passion for me, and I have the training program to put people through. I wanted to brand it, so I changed my LinkedIn profile to match it, and I'm going to, as soon as I do 2 more podcasts, I'm going to promote it on LinkedIn and Facebook and various places, just to increase the recognition of the brand.
Okay.
So
good.
it's not really revenue generating. It's more just increasing recognition for the brand.
Okay, good. And so, although it's a podcast, it's going to be very similar to a YouTube video when I get to my final my question here, and that is, do you try to script out your podcast? Do you let them just be an outline? Are you ad-libbing? What is your approach to the production part of a podcast?
I will usually take a couple of hours and script out what I want to say in outline form, and then maybe give it a couple of run-throughs before I do it.
Okay, and so and how long are these broadcasts? Generally?
The intro was just 5 to 7 minutes, but
Yeah.
the other episodes range between 15 and 30 minutes.
Okay, fine. And so the amount of total time invested to produce a 15 to 30 minute podcast is, what would you estimate?
A couple hours.
A couple of hours of prep, then you do the actual recording, and then you
Yes.
may or may not decide to edit it afterwards. Are you doing any
That's correct.
post-production audio editing, or?
I needed to with one. On the other ones, it just seemed to work out well.
Okay. All right. Good, good, good. All right. So again, the reason why I wanted to ask that question is because I wanted to always remind you guys that there is workload involved in each and every one of these approaches you may choose to use. And the biggest uh, trend we notice is people grossly underestimating the amount of time and energy it actually takes. So, like for example, in addition to the time that David is speaking about on the pre-production side of things, he still had to put time into getting his thoughts together, and I'm sure there was a bit of a learning curve about how to run whatever the software is to record the podcast. There's that, and then he's got to, of course, at the back end of things, decide how it's all going to be marketed, and we'll talk about that in grand detail in just a couple of minutes. So thank you guys very much for sharing those other two little aspects of this. So transcriptions and podcasting. So let's kind of jump into these last few slides that I have to bring this subject to closure. Just to kind of rewind a little bit, membership tiers and benefits. If you're going to have a membership organization, then you're going to need to think about what are you going to be providing at each sort of tier. What you need to have a free tier. You can have as many paid tiers as you really want. And that's all great. So then we talked about where do your other things fit in to your membership. So if you think about your membership as basically being, I want to say, the kind of more of a distribution concept. How do you take all of your intellectual property and now bring it to the consumer? And so what training courses are going to be included at what tiers versus what's going to be included versus an add-on. Same thing for whatever services you have to offer, same thing for whatever physical products you might have to offer. So what's going to be included at what tier and what's the add-on going to be? So I want to move on from membership, but just to kind of bring it to a bit of closure, do any of you have any questions, comments about the whole membership organization sort of way of expanding?
No,
Nope, nope, everything good? Okay, fine. Got a lot of you on the call today, so do feel free to unmute yourself and ask whatever you want. Okay, so the next thing that we were going to spend a little bit of time was online courses. And we've already talked about this in some detail, but I wanted to give you guys kind of like a little map of what we have learned is the most effective way for you to package and present whatever your subject matter is. Now, I know a lot of you have already done some online delivery of courses, so I'm going to ask you guys to kind of like chime in which pieces of this have you done, do you want to do, etc. So I kind of divided the online course into 5 different durations or different levels of I'm going to say volume of information that's going to be contained. So I think you need to have a preview. Now that preview may or may not be what you're using as like a marketing teaser trailer kind of a thing. When I'm thinking about a preview online course, I'm thinking something that's more like 15 minutes long. You're giving them a bit of an overview of what's going to be covered, but you're trying to actually teach them something during the preview, some little glimpse into what's going on, as opposed to it being nothing more than a video brochure of what your course may be. Now, you may very well have a video brochure in addition to that, but I don't think that really qualifies as a preview course. So we can talk more about this in detail if you guys would like, but some sort of very short glimpse into what the course might actually contain. Now, one of the things that I learned is that sometimes what the preview course is someone going into the recordings of one of their longer courses and just taking a couple of little extracted pieces, and then there's some little narrative to kind of weave between those, but they don't necessarily try to create a totally separate standalone preview course as much as build it from other video assets they have for other purposes. Okay, so a little bit of a preview course, very short. Now, from everything that we've been told, the most successful strategy for doing course development is to make it easy for people to decide to move to the next level. And so their next suggestion is that you create a course that is a single lesson. So a self-contained single lesson. Now there's a lot of discussion around how long can that lesson be. If it is a single standalone complete course in and of itself, how long could it actually be? Now, the reason why they're talking about single lessons is because single lessons are things that are easy to create, easy to edit as far as the post-production side of things goes, easy financial decisions for someone to make, but most importantly, easy things for your students to complete. And this becomes a really big issue when it comes to selling online courses. It's great that you have mapped out a course that's got umpteen lessons, and every lesson is visually stunning and thoroughly reinforced with all these kinds of tools, and you name it. You can just give them everything you possibly can dream of, and it could be award-winning, right, left, up, down. The question is, are they going to complete the course? Now, if a student is not going to complete a course, there is a price that you're going to pay when it comes to long-term relationships. So I'll hush up in just a second and ask you guys to chime in on this whole sort of thing. But I'd like you all to step into the confessional and tell me, what percentage of multi-lesson courses have you actually completed in their entirety? And what percentage have you not? What was it? Why did you complete the ones that you completed? Why did you abandon the ones that you abandoned? So I'd like you guys to kind of unmute, if you will, and share your personal experience with online courses. Yep. Jane, you were the first to unmute.
Oh, I would say on courses that I paid for, I would say I have a pretty high percentage of completion rate on those, 90%,
Okay.
and maybe even higher than that. Free courses, I'm pretty discriminating about signing up for stuff because I know that I can not, follow through.
Yep.
So pretty low percentage on free stuff.
Yeah.
And signing up for less and less.
Okay, so the courses that you completed, that you paid for, what compelled you to see it all the way through to the end?
Well, one thing I'm thinking of is an art course, and I just really loved the teacher, and was highly motivated to do her, learn how to do her techniques and stuff. And then actually, I'll have to say I signed up for another course of hers, and I never did a single lesson just because I got really busy during that time period and didn't have time. And ones that what was the question? And then any certification course, like I'm
Okay.
taking some, certification courses for coaching, and I finished those. And yeah, I've taken a bunch of stuff like that I finished, and
Okay.
and those were paid courses too.
Okay, great. Now I'm glad this is what I want you guys to be sharing, because it helps me then to help you build a list of factors that dramatically increase the likelihood of a student finishing the course. Now, why is it important that they finish a course? We're going to talk about a lot of reasons there, but in Jane's example, there was this certification element to it. If she didn't finish the course, she didn't get the credit. And so one of the ways that you can boost the likelihood of a student finishing a class is if there is something at the end of it that they otherwise don't get. So is it a designation? Is it a certification? Is it continuing education credits that they might need for whatever reasons? What is it that is compelling them to move to the end? And a lot of times it's because they're looking not even so much for the education, although we hope they like the course. They're looking for whatever that thing is at the end in order to get them to complete the coursework.
Well, and
Sheila?
I'll say one other reason that I'll say one other reason I've continued on in courses is when there's a community created and you have a small group that you're collaborating with, like a coaching pod or something like that. And I feel committed to those people.
Excellent. And what you're also now bringing up is something I want to talk to everyone about, and that is the course something that is actually presented live with interaction, or is it a course that is completely and totally automated? So do you think you're more likely to complete a course? This is for all of you. Feel free to unmute. Do you think you're more likely to complete a course that is scheduled and live, or complete a course that is self-paced? So you tell me what's going to, again, our goal is we want the students to complete the course. So, and we can talk about why, but just accept it now. We want people to complete the course. Okay, so, all right, tell me
Live
about it.
for sure.
Yeah,
For me.
live for sure. A live element.
Yeah,
Parts, you know,
scheduled and live.
yeah, parts of it can be like pre-work or whatever. That's all fine, but there has to be a live component to it if you want people to actually be more likely to complete the course.
You know, and
Yeah, Edie, go ahead.
yeah, in one word, going back to your first question, it just keeps flashing, and that's engagement.
Mhm.
I just, as long as I'm engaged, but if there's just a lot of giggling and nonsense, it's not worth my time, and I drop off and I get my money back. But it's
Mhm,
all, as long as I'm learning and engaged.
Mhm.
mhm, mhm. I
Yes,
agree.
I'll say the same thing.
All right, great, great, great. Okay, so again, the rest of you, if you've completed an online course, tell me what it is that compelled you to see it through to the end. What else? So we have community, engagement, there's some sort of an outcome, a trophy at the end of things, something like that. What else keeps you engaged in a longer term course?
T,
Uh,
do you think that our course, our French course in Duolingo would be an example?
Yeah, now the thing about Duolingo is it is fully automated. It is completely self-paced, but they have added an element of gamification to it. And they also have a very robust automated reminder system. So any of you have taken a course through Duolingo, or I'm sure many of its worthy competitors, you know that it reminds you every day, don't lose your streak. So come and take your lesson, and you're committing to earning a certain number of points every day. Well, for me, it's 20 points. I can earn my 20 points in less than 5 minutes. I keep advancing up these different levels as far as, what jewel have you earned and how many lingots have you earned, and on and on and on. So there's a gamification element to it. And there is this big reminder element to it. I would actually say to you that it is their reminder system that is most powerful at keeping you doing their course every single day than even the gamification elements to it. But so that's something we can talk about when it comes to a totally self-paced program, that you need to have some sort of strong reminder system. Um, and gamification is just something that's being talked about now. So I don't think it's really all that, obviously available in a lot of programs. So why that's important is that when you choose a platform for your course, you want to make sure that that platform has a built-in reminder system, that it knows where every student is in their progress in the program, and can send them a little note that says, make sure you do this, or you just finished that. Now it's time for this. There's got to be something that does that. Another way to work around that for a self-paced program is making sure that your platform allows you to do drip mailings. So someone can't sit down and just complete the entire course over the weekend. Instead, every X number of days, they receive a link to the next lesson, And they find that even having that kind of spaced access increases the likelihood that a student will complete the program. Okay, other thoughts, questions about why do you finish a course once you start it? Why do you finish it?
I've taken a couple of courses on Thinkific is the
Mhm.
platform.
Yep.
And they have the courses are very well designed for online. So they have a live component. It's always recorded. So if you miss the call, you can go and do it afterwards, or you can redo it if you want to, you know, which I've done. I've gone back and reviewed the material over, and they have homework in between, and you have to complete the homework to go to the next.
Hmm.
You know, you have to check off each one of the homework assignments and reading. Some of it's pre-reading for the next course, and some of it's post-reading. I mean, for the session, and the invitation for the next session won't open up until you've completed the homework.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and that's like a really super clean, slick platform if anybody's
Yeah,
wants to.
Thinkific. Yeah. When you
Um,
guys start looking at those platforms, you're going to find there are dozens of them. So go with recommendations before you try to start searching from scratch.
yeah, and I don't know what it's like on the other side. And it's a big company. Sometimes there's 400 or 500 people on the calls.
Yeah.
But
And they all have different compensation structures, fee structures. There's all sorts of, you got to find one that really works for you, but do begin your search with recommendations from people you already know that are doing it. I love this idea that you could just say at the end of every lesson, I'm going to give somebody a very simple short quiz. And that quiz just validates the fact that they paid attention during the lesson. And if they pass the quiz, which can be scored automatically, you don't need to get physically involved, they will receive the link to the next lesson in the whole thing. So anything like that keeps them moving forward. It also gives you feedback about where your students are in your course. And if they do drop out, can you identify patterns where at what lesson do they drop out? Because obviously when they start dropping out, you need to do something to modify whatever the course is. Now, again, this goes back to the belief that it is very much to your advantage for people to complete a course once they've started it. Why is it important that people complete the courses once they start them? Anybody? I mean, there's 11 of you.
and you have the opportunity to sell another course.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have a repeat student. That'd be sweet. Why else might I want to make sure people are completing courses?
They'll tell other people.
Right. I want them to be able to tell, I finished the course. It was really, really good. My big fear is I don't want them to go like, well, I signed up for it and I did half the lessons but then I kind of dropped. That's not boding well for your word of mouth and any kind of viral sort of growth, which, by the way, is why some people say you should not put together courses of any real length unless, as Jane already pointed out, people are going through this because they're trying to get some sort of certification, some sort of continuing education element to it. Then they'll do it because they have another motive for doing it. And it could be as long as it needs to be, and they'll stick with it because that's just what they have to do. But if you're trying to sell kind of more of like an enrichment course, something that people are taking for their own personal growth and development, then you have to think about how long do you want the course to be? Do you believe that the population you're going after is more likely to complete a very, what do I say, approach a nice pile, a menu of standalone single lessons for X amount of money each? Or do you think they're going to go like anybody will complete a 2 or 3 lesson short course? Will they complete a 5 lesson short course? How about, are they going to complete, would they complete a 25 lesson short course? So you guys get the idea. It's like, if I want people to finish something, one of the things that I can do is make it short to begin with. And then they have that feeling like I've completed that, I've accomplished that. And maybe they'll take another one, another one, another one. Thoughts about single lesson curricula versus short courses of what duration? Thoughts around that?
T, I this is off the topic of hiring, but another thing I created a short course around was delegation. a really important skill, and one that is often, as you know, when it's down in power apathy, not done well. And so I wanted to bring the level of awareness and bring the level of skill up for an average supervisor or leader to be able to effectively delegate a task and get the result that they were looking for. 30 minutes.
30 minutes as
Yep,
a single
30
a single lesson, 30-minute, or was there more than one
single,
lesson?
no, single lesson, 30-minute.
And what were you selling that for?
$39.
Sweet. Okay, fine. And so that becomes the real question. Again, let's not lose sight of the very first question I asked you guys when we started this series long, long ago. The bottom line question is, how much are you trying to create? And then we're just trying to find the most direct way of creating that amount of revenue with as little work as possible, so we could move into something more residual. Well, good grief, if you can create a 30-minute course on delegation skills and sell it for $39, once that course, face it, everybody, the skill of delegation is not likely to change all that much in the next decade or whatever. It's like, this is a solid set of perpetual skill. So he could put that up and just sell that over and over and over and over and over again. So the people that create single lesson or short courses are the ones who are always going like, what I'm really trying to develop is a group of active students who every month, every quarter, I can release a new lesson or a new short course, and I know that they're going to be likely to buy whatever that course happens to be. They already know me, they know it's going to be valuable, this price is there. And when I sell them the new course, of course, I'm going to show them the list of all the courses that they that are already in the can, so they can go and take those too and buy those as well. Well, at a certain point, you can say, maybe what I do is move this into a membership platform and say, you can buy these single lessons, you can buy these short courses independent of one another, or if you subscribe to my membership organization at a particular tier, for your monthly fee of X, you can get to all the single lessons you want. You can get to all of the short courses. You decide what you're going to put at each tier. But I go back to this whole idea about, if you want to make money entirely off of doing online courses, then you're going to have to make sure you choose the right platform that exposes you to the right population, so that you can get people who are going to be buying your program, not just the month in which it's released, but it's a legacy program. It's there for a long, long time and continues to have its value and continues to bring you revenue. All right. Now, the last two bullet points on this one are about professional courses and certification courses. These are going to be longer. You can just count on it. They're going to be longer. And there's an expectation for a higher level of quality in the way the programs are designed, laid out, structured, delivered. We want higher production values in terms of visuals that are being used, ancillary materials, that level of community involvement, et cetera. There's a greater expectation that comes along with both professional and certification level courses. And there's a price tag that comes along with those as well. It is very possible for you guys to do nothing in terms of previews, single lesson, short courses, and just say, all I'm going to do is put together a certification level course. And now my whole job is to go out there and find a relative handful of people every month who will go through that certification course to create the amount of revenue that I'm really looking for. And so if you guys have created a robust body of intellectual property that you think you could go out there and certify people in doing, or just let it be a professional, whether it includes a designation or continuing education credits, that's not as much work as trying to sell well, let's say that David wants 10 grand a month on a $39 program. And let's say the platform he uses, he ends up walking away with $33. Okay, David, you need a lot of people.
Yeah.
Take that course. And so it becomes the question, is it easier for me to find the 1,000+ people? Actually, it would be 3,000 people at $33. Is that right? 3,000 people at $33 would give
No,
me 99. Oh, no, no, no. I need to get 300
300.
people. 300. Well, I was just going to go forget that. So 300 people to hand you
Well,
$39, or is it easier to find 3 people who'll hand you $3,300 because you have a certification level course? So there's still sales work that needs to be done, marketing work that needs to be done, but ultimately, which is more doable? Or is it a professional course that's $999 and you need to find 10 of those people per month to begin that course? So just kind of think about that. Professional and certification courses take a lot more work to develop, and obviously they have to be developed before they can be sold. Or are you happier to do the quick stuff, the single lessons, the shorter courses, et cetera, and build from there? Okay, that's online courses. We can certainly talk more about it if you guys want, but I did have one last slide, and that has to do with this whole marketing approach. No matter which one of these you choose to do, whether it's going to be a membership organization, whether it's going to be an online learning platform, whatever it is, you need to go through some steps in terms of marketing. Now, let me be very clear. Those of you who have not gone through our sales training course, we make a very strict distinction between marketing and sales. So the purpose of marketing is to create inquiries. It is to create actual conversations, whatever form they may take, with someone who will then buy something from you. So once the inquiry starts, sales begins. So once I get an inquiry, I'm no longer marketing, now I'm selling. But everything leading up to that inquiry is all about marketing. The goal of marketing is to create inquiries in excess of your capacity to handle the workload. I'll repeat that. The purpose of marketing is to create inquiries in excess of your capacity to handle the workload. So once you get from inquiry to a sales discussion, you're going to have a certain closing rate. And that closing rate is ultimately going to fill whatever the capacity is. If you're selling time for money, well, then you only have so much time to sell. So once it's full, it's full. If you were trying to just create X amount of revenue, well, once you've created it, you've created it. So the question is going to get back to how many inquiries do I need in order to generate whatever the revenue part of the equation is seeking. So now, why is that important? Because you don't need to necessarily do as much marketing as you think you do. You don't necessarily need to do every single marketing angle that's ever been conceived of in order to get you to where you're going. You're just trying to create enough inquiries to fill whatever your outcome happens to be. So that's what we say. We want to create enough inquiries in excess of. Doesn't have to be 10 times, but just have a little bit more inquiry than you think you're going to need mathematically to meet your objective. All right, so are we clear about what my distinction between what marketing is and sales is? Yeah?
yes.
Okay, so marketing. So we got to figure out, well, what's my marketing step? Well, number one, I got to decide, what is my marketing outlet going to be? Again, we aren't out there meeting people socially as much as we were before the pandemic became part of our reality. We aren't doing a lot of the face-to-face calls we might have otherwise done. There aren't the big events going on where we can have a table in a trade show. That's just not part of it anymore. And so when we're talking about marketing in this reality, it's like, what kind of a platform are you going to use for your marketing? Now, we've talked about YouTube, we've talked about LinkedIn. There's other social media outlets you could be doing, but I also want to make sure that you guys know that you may very well decide that all you need to do is tap into your existing base. So Some of you have been doing this work for decades. It may very well be that you don't need to do anything in terms of social media. You don't need to have a YouTube channel. You don't need to develop your LinkedIn presence. All you really need to do is work the database you already have. So are any of you in the position where your existing CRM is so jam-packed with people who could still be your users that if you just focused on what you've already got built, you might very well be able to satisfy your financial objectives? If the answer is yes, then the follow-up question is going to be, so are you doing that? Or how are you going to do that? How are you going to work on this kind of thing? Now, the reason for it is because all that existing list does is it allows you to bypass these first three steps. You're already at step number 4. So you've already got your list kind of compiled. But let's assume you don't have that, or you're not satisfied with it, or you want to go a different direction than wherever it is. You got to decide, what is your outlet going to be? Is it going to be a YouTube channel or some other video distribution channel? Is it going to be LinkedIn or some other business-oriented system like LinkedIn is? Or is it some other kind of social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it happens to be? So how many of you right now have decided if you're going to do it? And if you have decided you are going to do it, decided which platform is going to be the platform you're going to choose? Yay, nay?
Going strong into LinkedIn.
Okay, you're strong on the LinkedIn side of things. Excellent. Who else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say so. I had a little bit of a nibble from Facebook to try some things out, but it didn't seem to return very much.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, just because you're going to focus on LinkedIn doesn't mean you don't want to have presence on Facebook. Just make sure it's always routing people to your LinkedIn. So you're not trying to develop a YouTube presence and a LinkedIn presence. Just whatever you're doing, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or whatever, just always make sure it's pointing back to the platform that you really are trying to invest your energy in developing. Yeah. Okay, and by the way, beyond this, there's also, as Jane mentioned about Thinkific, if you guys look at a lot of these online university platforms, they also have their own, well, they're just another form of social media. They're just positioning themselves with a different population in mind and a different outcome is what makes them very special. Okay. Now, once you've decided what your outlet is going to be, you need to establish yourself in that outlet. And so that means you need a YouTube channel, or you need a LinkedIn account. You need to do whatever it is to create your presence. And it's amazing to me how many people I talk to that says, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. And I, I'm not a LinkedIn person. I have a profile on LinkedIn, but I don't know that I've even looked at it in years, let alone updated the thing. So I'm talking about you establishing an updated, state-of-the-art channel or account on whatever platform you have chosen. So how many of you need to build that platform or establish that account, build that channel, or at least you go like, well, I've had it, but it's time to really get back into it and polish it all up and see what new stuff is available. So how many of you have got some work to do on the establishment level? Yes?
No, I'd say pretty established.
Okay. All right. And so once you know that you're fully established in that, the next thing becomes, all right, now how are you going to go about using that? So when it comes to something like LinkedIn, does that mean you need to start a group, participate in a group, become a main contributor in a particular group? Is it that you're going to be using their outreach capabilities? They also have their own kind of video channel available, or a video capability. Are you going to put something up on there? We have to start to prepare. What is our casual intake going to be? Because it's great to have that presence. It's great to establish yourself, but you need to move people. So how are you going to move these people from being aware of who you are to becoming engaged with whatever it is you might have to offer? So what is your casual intake system going to be? Now, You guys have access to the change grid, so certainly you could put together an opportunity for someone to complete a change grid, and you could be doing a group debrief and record that, and you could use that as your casual intake system. Position as a little bit of a quiz or a self-awareness kind of an exercise that includes a debrief, etc. So you could do that, but there's other things you could be doing for casual intake. And so I'll ask you guys that are already doing something out there, what are you doing for casual intake? How are you moving people from being aware of who you are to actually interacting with you in some meaningful sort of way? Anyone?
We're doing two things, and I'm going to full disclosure say that we're just starting this. One of them is Kathy and I both have committed to posting on LinkedIn every single day, and that is a air quote meaningful post, either a video or a lengthy reply to someone else has, or a share of something with some of our own content. That's the first thing. The second thing we're doing is we've in fact, I just put it together yesterday, established a good sales process so that if we do identify someone that we do want to work with, to begin to turn that from they're aware of us to reaching out, making that initial connection, asking for 10 minutes to talk about coaching, and then proceeding through a process where at the end of this, after 5 or 6 steps, they wind up either going, yes, absolutely, we want to use you, or hey, this isn't a fit right now.
Okay, and so the thought is that you'll do these postings, and let postings make sure they got something of value. That's all great. I will say that feels separate from doing the outreach part of seeing people. So how are you identifying who you want to reach out to? Is this connected to your group postings, or is this kind of like a separate search and reach out sort of a thing?
Yeah, good question. So a couple of things. One is, in the past week, I've posted some things that definitely incited some strong responses from other people on LinkedIn, and some folks really liked, some folks really didn't like. And the folks who did like, I had a bunch of LinkedIn requests to connect to folks who I'd never heard of before, and it seems to be directly correlated to those postings. So while they are separate steps, they definitely are linked to help create awareness and then follow up with that sales process.
Okay, and so then you're going to reach out to them and initiate some sort of dialogue. So what I still want to hear is, what is the casual intake piece? So how do I move them from reaching out to them, hello, to reaching out to them and now they're involved in something that's casual but valuable, that gives them an opportunity to gain something from the interaction with you, and at the same time doesn't involve them making any kind of a grand commitment. Are you guys all with me on what I mean by a casual intake system?
You could probably just describe that a little bit more.
Yeah, like for example, a casual intake system would be something like inviting them to participate in a little webinar that you're doing, inviting them to some sort of a focus group where you would like to have their critical feedback about something like that, asking them if they would like to be interviewed for your video channel because you find whatever they're doing interesting enough. You'd like to do a little bit of a podcast with them, or a little bit of an interview of them on Zoom or something like that. Is it that you have an article you think they might find very interesting that you want to send to them? There has to be something that gives them an opportunity to know a little bit more about you and what you're all about, for there to be some real meat to whatever those initial conversations are going to be. And so I would encourage you guys to really think about, I've put my, when I reach out and I call somebody, it's like I am putting my hook into a very specific pond. But without some sort of a casual intake element, there's no bait on the hook. So we can still have a conversation. We can still hope that they've got some, give us 10 minutes, do whatever. But what is this bait that I can be using to get them a little bit more engaged in getting to know you first? So I think that that's one of the things that I've noticed. If we're looking about how people do coaching, one of the things that they've routinely done is a free coaching session. Now, I'm not in favor of that because I don't believe you should ever give away what you're trying to sell. So you'd have to structure that coaching demonstration very, very specifically. But that was at least a form of casual intake, or as I've already said, people inviting people to participate in some sort of a webinar. That's very effective. In the old days, you guys would go out and do speaking engagements for chambers of commerce or for whatever professional organization was having their little monthly meeting. That's a form of casual intake. So it could be some sort of an instrument that you're using. Forget the change grid for a second, although please never forget the change grid. But for a second, set it aside, just go like, well, no, maybe I do have 10 questions that everyone should think about. And I'd like to send that to them just to get them engaged in what's going on. And then you can do a follow-up call to see what it is. So that becomes the real question. What is your easy, effortless way for that prospect to get to know more about you? And anything you guys want to brainstorm around that, I'm happy to do that, but that's what it's going to be. What's that casual intake system? Now, in many ways, your participation in a LinkedIn group can serve as that casual intake system, particularly if you are the one who started that group. So are you just a participant in the group, or are you not someone who's just participating, but you're a thought provoker? You're the one who throws questions out to that group to initiate these kinds of dialogues, in which case, because you started the group, you would want to be communicating far more evidently with the people that are giving you sorts of comments or whatever the case may be. So this is my whole point. The only reason why you're participating in those groups is because you're trying to get conversations going. You're trying to get people to view you in a particular light. And so what do you need to do to have that light to become brighter and brighter and more focused on you as that expert that everyone wants to reach out to, or that everyone would give those 5-10 minutes to in order to to do that. Thoughts about that, Ivan, Daryl? Daryl, I went David Harrell and slammed that together. I actually have you down as D Harrell, Daryl. And I have no excuse. I've known the man for 30 years. So
Exactly the point.
there it is. Okay. All right. This is what I want you guys to really be thinking about. What is your casual intake system going to be? Now, from that casual intake, and by the way, the collateral materials is that you do still need to have a website people can come and check things out on, or, the days of physical brochures, perhaps those days are past, but you need to have your electronic equivalent to that. Yeah. Now, ultimately, you're going to be compiling lists and expanding the lists you already have so that you can have this little launch kind of an event. Now, depending on which platform you use, that launch event can take many different shapes. So certainly what's becoming more and more popular on YouTube is for you to do a live event where people can come in, you're having a conversation, people the comments come in so fast, sometimes you can barely read them, they're scrolling that quickly. But you really are creating a lot of energy around it. Or do you want to get known within the LinkedIn community as someone who every single month is offering this little day of learning, or this little episode of learning? I can tell you that when I was building my business initially, I was very much into this whole idea about the day of learning. And back in those days, we would actually rent a room, a little conference room in a hotel somewhere. And from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, we had stuff going on that people could come to, drop in on. So there were networking elements to it. There were little quick lessons. There was a big presentation. We did our very best to say, here is our day of learning. And every single month we would invite people to come to that day of learning. Well, you can imagine that as it went on and people became more and more aware of it, we started to have limited capacity, and we started to have problems on that side of things. And of course, it was leading to business, and it got to a point where I didn't have time to really put much energy into the day of learning because I was busy working with paying clients. And so, can we do an electronic version of that? Maybe it's not going to be a full day, but can it be an evening or an afternoon of insight, in something like that you can actually invite people to participate in, and you can be something that's free to get it started at the very least, to do that. Now, in a way, that's still going to be more about casual intake because I haven't sold anybody anything yet. But the whole point of having whatever that event is or event series is so that you can expand. You can capture the people who are participating in your event. You can then spend your time cultivating those relationships, which is what Ivan was alluding to with the people they want to reach out to. That's a cultivation activity. But you can also get them to share the awareness of this with others. And then as you're doing all that, sooner or later, we got to get to the last step. And it's amazing how often people don't have this ready to go. What exactly is your offer going to be? So you're bringing people into the fold, you're using some casual intake, you're doing your little event, you're capturing their attention, cultivating that relationship. Sooner or later, what are you trying to sell them? What is the easy thing? Is it going to be a single course lesson or a single lesson course? Is it going to be a membership in your membership organization? Or are you thinking they're going to go directly to engaging whatever custom services you might want to present to them as being ideal for them to take advantage of? So that's what I want you to be thinking about in terms of marketing. Now, if you guys want, we can do deeper dives into any of these subjects on future calls. But I'd like to kind of consider this whole roadblock number 2020 to kind of like be done for now, so we can move on to some other things. But I don't want you to think we're abandoning this. If you guys have any desire to go deeper in all these, just send me an email, reach out to me, and we can figure out the best way for us to do a deeper dive on these. Remember that Roadblock 2020 is one of about 100 different topics in building a career that matters. A lot of these deeper dives you might want to go on may very well already exist in the Building a Career That Matters series, and that series is up on YouTube, so you can go check it out. Okay, with that, any closing comments, thoughts, questions?
Thanks, T.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Everybody. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll talk again on Thursday.